So my mom was Mandela affected in the 60s and 70s, and we'd be driving along in the car, and they'd announce some celebrity's death. And I'm like, in the 60s, I might be 7 years old. In the 70s, I might be 12. And she's like, no, that's impossible. And I say, why, Mom? Why is that impossible? And she goes, because they died. They died 3 years ago. And I said, well, how do you know they died 3 years ago? She bought every rag at the supermarket, National Enquirer, News of the Weird, you name it, she had it. So she not only knew when they died, she knows who went to their funeral and who didn't. She knows what they wore to the funeral. Yeah. So she's really telling me that these people are dying twice. And we just go, oh, okay, that's really interesting, and forget about it. I don't say she's got bad memory. I'm just like, hey, we're a weird family. Okay. I didn't know timelines. I didn't know multidimensional worlds. I didn't know the Mandela effect. So fast forward to 1980, I would say 84.
Okay.
I'm working for Loyola University radio station in the news department as the news director, and I get a chance to go to South Africa, and I say, I'm going to go interview Nelson Mandela. He's in prison, he's dying, and they're thinking of letting him out early. So I get over there, and I put in my application to go meet with him in prison, and it's turned down. And I said, why are you turning me down? And he didn't say, because you're a college kid and we really don't care about college radio. He said, we're not letting anybody see him. He's too sick. But we'll let you talk to Adrian Vlok, who is the minister of defense. He was the deputy minister of defense when I interviewed him. But prior to that, he was in charge of prisons and state prisoners. So he sat down and I interviewed him, and I learned a few things that I later fact checked. And that's that Nelson Mandela's been psyoped a little bit. Isn't the 666 in his prison number?
I anyway, okay. I have my own suspicions about him.
I want to hear about that, because here's what I did fact check it after. I don't just stick a microphone in someone's face and then go, oh, those are all true words. You have to kind of look and see what's true or not. He was imprisoned for life with a couple of other members. I think it was it the ANC? It's, my memory is now going back to 1986, 85, 84, 84. And he and a few other members bombed a train station in Port Elizabeth, a little town I went to, not like Cape Town or any of the other big Joburg. And 4 people died. So the prison term was life in prison for the deaths, not for speaking out about racism, which he also did. I mean, that was the good side of him, was that he was speaking out about racism, apartheid. And the bad side was he was willing to plant a bomb with a few other people and kill people to get his message heard. So in South Africa, life in prison is life in prison. You die in prison. Unlike America, where life in prison is probably like 5 years now. What is it, 20, 30?
20, 30, yeah.
So I went back with my interview. I was contacted by his group in Chicago. I said, no, I'm not going to release my tapes, but you can listen to the broadcast and you'll get everything you need. So I was sympathetic. I was very much marching with Reverend Jesse Jackson on Washington. I was part of the Rainbow Coalition. I found out I was, I did my own news report at National Public Radio in Chicago and found out that I had been wiretapped by the FBI, because in college I was with the group called CISPAS, which is the Citizens in Support of the People El Salvador. But I was innocently making posters and marching while the priests were taking illegals in as war refugees and hiding them in their basements. So I didn't know, but that kind of put me on the radar very, very early, because I was very active with Amnesty International,
Oh, yeah.
So fast forward, trying not to drag this story out.
It's
1995. Good. Thank you. I'm living in London and I've left media. Well, was it 1995? Yeah, I was pretty much getting out of media soon. And suddenly, I see Nelson Mandela on the news with the Spice Girls in London. And I'm like, what the flip? Because even though I didn't report on his death in prison, I was at the news desk listening to the international reporting coming out of Washington while I was doing the Chicago news as they covered his death in like 1991. For me, 1991.
Yay,
No,
finally.
91 is the one everybody's
awesome.
got.
Well, he
I
got
I think he
29.
died in 87, in 86 or 87, because he died like 2 years after I got that interview. And
Yeah,
he died in prison weeks before his release, right?
yeah. Supposedly.
Supposedly. And then
Yeah.
the book in South Africa called, you guys, if I sound befuddled, it's because I've not talked about this or thought about it in many, a long time. They did a book in South Africa called English Alive, where they said he died and there was a national mourning period in 1991. But in my brain, my experience, it was more like 87.
Yeah, it was in the late 80s, yeah. And there was almost no in Africa, there was almost no televised nothing. A major death like that, and nobody televised it. In the United States, they did a brief televised about his death. It was in the prison, though. So
It was in the prison.
It was, the funeral was in the prison. So it was all over, I call it white people TV, all over Europe, but it was nothing in any other country except for white people TV, and it was in the prison. She didn't have no pictures. It was vague. It was short.
And then didn't he have like a huge state funeral and international and presidents showed up and ex-presidents showed up?
Yeah, 13.
In 2013 or 2014.
But in the late 80s, it was like, it was in prison. It was done in prison. Everything was done there's no body. There's no nothing. And then was it 91, 92? He gets out with a big ass boom, and there's like celebrations in Africa and all over the world. I'm like, hey, he's dead.
I was in Eastern Europe then, so I missed that news. And then I moved to England, and he shows up in London in 95, and I'm like, how's a dead man walking? What's going on here? And of course, my husband made fun of my memory, and I'm like, I didn't think of my mom seeing dead people return to life. The Mandela effect didn't mean anything. But then I found like Cynthia Sue Larson and PMH Atwater and Lynn McTaggart. And especially Cynthia talks about reality shifters, which she credits PMH Atwater for turning.
She's been on the show before too.
Yeah. Oh, I love her. She's just she's amazing.
She's actually our very first guest ever.
Really?
Yes.